Dames en here, goed, ons volgende spreker vir die dag. Hy gaan kort sy CV in die voorhou. Gebore in die Vrystaat, Roewel in die Suid-Vrystaat, studeer veekunde op Koffsies, werk die meeste van die loopbaan in verskillende hoedanighede as 'n veekundige en voedingkundige in verskillende instansies en lande in hoofsaaklik in die suiwelbedryf en verwante landboubedrywighede. Is hy afgelope 10 jaar betrokke in die landboumedia, eers as bestuurende direkteur van AgriConnect, die filiaal van die melkprodusentenorganisasie, en die laaste 5 jaar as bestuurende direkteur en mede-eienaar van Plaas Publishing. Dis die uitgewers van onder andere Veeplaas, Stokfarm en Farmbus. Dames en here, ek stel voor Albert Loubser op die tema bemarking van my stoetkudde. Dankie Albert.
Because it's me that stands between you and some refreshments that apparently is waiting. So I'm really going to try my best to keep to the time and not to keep you busy too long. And in doing so, I might go over some stuff quite quickly if I'm not if I'm missing out on anything. Please stop me and ask. But I really would like to talk to you today, simply because we want to talk about something that's going to give you the least investment for the highest yield that you can imagine. If you look at, and I imagine all of you being stud farmers, or most of you being stud farmers, and specifically Brahman farmers, if you imagine breeding that bull, that wonderful bull you've been working your whole life to get, it's not going to help you a thing if that bull sits on your farm and no one knows that it's actually for sale. And that's where marketing comes in. Because if people know about what you have to offer, that's something that you have, something suddenly becomes valuable and becomes a commodity that you can earn money from. Now, I just wanted to share with you something that happened with me quite recently that kind of taught me that very same lesson. No, it's not right. Because I'm selling magazines and you're selling bulls, but essentially we're in the same kind of business. We trade. Earlier this year, I got a call from a gentleman, and it was quite obvious from his accent that he's not South African. It turns out that he's from Cameroon, and he found our magazine on the shelf in one of the airports, and he was interested in what was in the magazine, so he asked where he can get a magazine. Initially, he saw the magazine in a show that we were involved in Abuja, Nigeria. Now, that very day was that kind of day, almost like this morning was, where this kind of opportunities you kind of would like to pass by, simply because it's not possible. There are just so many hours in a day. But we focus on Africa. Africa's very important for us as a magazine, as a publisher, and I'm very sure out of agriculture point of view, the same applies. Many people today see an agricultural future for us in Africa more than in only South Africa. So I thought this kind of opportunity is not going to be there again. And I said to the gentleman, or he asked me where he can get a magazine. I said, no, I'm not in Cameroon. I don't distribute there because they're French speaking. And there was my first mistake. Apparently they do speak English. His English was better than mine. To the English-speaking people in the audience, please bear with me. I grew up in the Free State, as Arthur said. In the Free State, English is not a second language, it's a foreign language. So he asked me where he can get the magazine. I said, well, I'm not in Cameroon. He said, but can't I just bring him some magazines, just back copy something that he can read? I said, no, sure, I'll do that. In the same way that I would say, yes, I would do that if I visit my parents in Brandfort in the Free State and some oom of tannie ask them, while your son is going back to Gauteng, please carry this parcel along. They don't know how big Gauteng is. It takes me longer to take that parcel from Grasmere to wherever I need to take it than from Brandfort to Gauteng. And he was in a hotel in Sandton. it just turned out that only late that night, I think 9 o'clock, I'm not sure, I managed to bring the magazine. But to cut a long story short, what I got from that little marketing, because that's all it was after service sales. That's all I did. I got a paid trip for a whole week to Cameroon, had the unbelievable privilege of seeing the rainforest, which is quite something. I actually saw Brahman cattle there. For people that don't know, there might be a bull market. Maybe you want to go there next. And a very good marketing opportunity. If you would go to Cameroon, you'll find Stock Farm magazine there, all because of this one gentleman. So the point I'm getting at, that is the essence of marketing. It makes things possible that otherwise might not have been possible. Now, just to save time, I'm going to go through a few things quite quickly. The intention, this is a marketing talk, but we all stockmen and we all talk about cattle. So I touch on subjects that actually need a lot of more discussion. So if I go quickly over them, please stop me if they don't make sense. You have to answer yourself a few questions, and that's very obvious. Anyone in marketing would know that first you need to understand what you market. Now, fortunately, and I'm very grateful for that, to talk about marketing here today is actually quite easy. Anyone can do it. We're on Allen's farm. You just need to look around and you can see what good marketing means. Arthur has spoken before me, Llewellyn just before I came on. And they are all gentlemen that talked about marketing in their presentations and are living examples of what marketing of your stud should be. You need to then define a very specific target. What do you want to achieve with your marketing plan? And you need to be extremely specific. It's like the young man going to a dance and they say, I want a girlfriend. You don't want a girlfriend, you want that girlfriend. You all saw that slide that we just saw. You know, that could be a very, very difficult and dangerous thing to just only want a girlfriend. You need to be extremely specific to what you want to achieve. Then you need to understand your surroundings. You need to understand your market. You need to know where that specific, and let's rather leave the girlfriend out of it, but that specific thing you want to achieve, where that is. And then, of course, the budget, because nothing comes for free. That's unfortunately how life works. And then you need to execute, because once been paid for, the execution is going to be everything. And this everything put together is the plan. That's the marketing plan. Now, in doing that, you need to put a lot of things together. You need to understand a lot. And I'm not going to be long on this simply because of time, but this is essential. If you don't do this well, then a whole marketing plan is going to be nothing. And why I say that, and I say that with great respect, I haven't seen many marketing gurus being successful in agriculture. Why? Simply because agriculture is too difficult. That's it, simple. You need to go out to a farm. For instance, if a marketing person is helping a farmer to sell his cattle, for instance, you need to go out. You might tread into some things that stick to your shoes, and when you go back to Sandton, you're not a very welcome person. You need to understand what you are doing. And there are people that live their whole life working in agriculture and still say, I only now understand how little I really know. So there's just a few facts that I just thought is important to keep in mind, and the idea is not to talk about them specifically, but just to keep them in mind. South Africa is a net importer of meat, and will be like that for quite a while. So I'm very glad to see people from Zimbabwe here, the people from Zimbabwe and Namibia. The same applies. You cannot really look at South African, the meat trade in South Africa without thinking SADC. Simply because we are so hugely influenced by the people around us. Game is going to influence, talk about a curve bender, game is going to be a curve bender for the cattle industry in this country. The people that paid 800,000 rand and R1 million for a bull a few years ago, they now pay 40 million for a buffalo. That money doesn't come to our industry anymore. this some people say, agree, the people that disagree feel quite strong about this, but I still stick to this. We have too many cattle breeds in South Africa. There's no doubt. You look at the world, you look at the simple numbers. There's Rian and his wife, and Don has been to Australia now with us. And please, guys, don't worry. I'm not going to show photos. What goes on tour, stay on tour, so you can relax. But we've seen what we've seen in Australia. They got double the cattle we've got, and basically the same amount of breeds. There's a huge argument for the resources that we have available to support a breed in South Africa, and it really doesn't make sense if a breed is not commercially viable that they should have some of those resources. But that's, as I said, another thing. Color is important. You speak to any Angus farmer, he'll tell you the difference in selling a black bull and selling a red bull. The Brangus got the same thing, so you have to keep that in mind. Unfortunately, in South Africa, we go to, and I thought my English is going to leave me at one point, and this is that point. Ons is modetelers. We like to follow a fashion. Ek het geweet om Andries gaan my uithelp, a fashion. How many farmers sit with a specific breed because he's been to a show and he liked what he saw? Just before I spoke, Llewellyn went through the figures. That's how you should not only decide which bull you are farming, you want to buy, but what breed you are involved in. And the difference between different breeds becoming vaguer and vaguer as we go along. And maybe just a short second on this. At the Bonsmara, they call it the red rooi geleentheid, the red event. Professor Frikkie Neser gave a talk there that was, for me, very interesting. He put 8 different red breeds on a screen. And remember, there was about 200-300 Bonsmara breeders. And he asked them, what breeds are they? If anyone was correct, that someone didn't stand up and say, I was correct. So given the audience, I would have thought if you were correct, you would have said that, but no one did. Because in that very qualified audience, people could not identify the difference on a photo. Fact taken, it's a photo. Now, I thought it was an idea pushed by Professor Frikkie Neser, but I've recently heard that I'm wrong. Llewellyn was saying that long before Frikkie, that eventually we might end up with only 2 types of cattle in this country, red cattle on the one and Brahman type on the other. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I say everything points towards that. So whatever you do now, make sure that you'll be ready for it if that happens. We do not do crossbreeding in South Africa. Whatever we say we do, whenever you visit any other country and you see how crossbreeding really looks when you put the science behind it, and that's really what you do. And unfortunately, there's not an English word for that, but honestly speaking, most of us are better than te buster than to crossbreed. And then the whole thing about breeds. We've got this thing in South Africa. Whatever starts at crossbreeding ends up in a new breed ready to be registered by the register. And I'm not saying it's good or bad or anything like that. I'm just saying it's happening. And when that happens, this many breeds that we already got, they just become more. Now, someone said, and that's something to think about, that if you look at what we should be doing, we should look what the pig industry is doing, because whatever happens in the pig industry would be our industry, that be now cattle 10 years later. And if in South Africa, whatever I say that's what it is, and there should be an alternative. That alternative has already been done by the small stock farmers. But it's not me that said that, I just quote someone else. We do not do much breed marketing in South Africa, also not that much academic input or from the academic side to that. And I really want to congratulate the Brahman breeders, because I honestly thought you guys did exactly that very few breeds are doing in this country, where you say, we as a whole society, we need to promote our breed collectively, not only one by one. In terms of breeders, things that we have to just remember, everyone wants to be stud farmers. Both Llewellyn and Arthur said that about the commercial market. The bull market has been under pressure, so is female animals. There's a huge competition between breeds and breeders, but for some strange reason, it's not openly recognized. There cannot be. We've got about 13 million cattle in South Africa. The influence of the different breeds is going to be determined by the most successful breeds and the breeds that market themselves best. If you look at what's happening in the world, and I'll get to that, breeds are disappearing. In Europe, as much as 10 or as many as 10 breeds per year disappear. You can only then see them in zoos, not on farms anymore. Marketing is expensive. The whole thing between the commercial farmers and the stud farmers is not well. And I say that with a lot of respect, because I assume talking mainly to stud farmers. The problem is not from that stud farmers say we don't get along with commercial farmers. It's the other way around. And that's the nice thing about the media, because you kind of get these vibes from people who speak out. And there are definite voices amongst commercial farmers that say, we need a product, we are the client, and we want our supplier, which is now the stud farmer, to hear what exactly our need is. And then something that we have to understand. If I should ask you now who you consider to be your biggest opposition, being Brahman breeders, most likely you'll point out someone in the same district as you that market a different breed, but you're wrong. Your opposition sits next to you as we sit here. Your biggest opposition in your market is most likely a farmer farming very close to you with the same marketing targets as you, that sells the same kind of product. And when you look at rugby, and I don't like talking about rugby, and I'm very sure the Blue Bull supporters also don't want to talk about rugby. My white shirt is because I'm a Free State supporter and I've now totally given up. But it's always easy to take a rugby comparison to what happened with breeding. The best scrum half in the world, arguably Fourie de Preez, is still the worst loose head forward. If you don't play him in a position, he's useless. And the same applies with a guy like Koenie Oosthuizen. Well, he does think that he's got something to offer on inside center, but I doubt. So I think it's vitally important that a breed plays in the position where it's best. You play with your strong points, not your weak points. And in this very point, if you want to distinguish yourself from your position, that now being your farmer, you need to do something different. And you need to do something that your target market is going to see and what they can appreciate. What's happening in the world, things I've already touched on breeds disappearing, composites, people farming with terminal crosses in cows, F1s, which will never have any pregnancy until, for themselves. Then the specialty breeds, Angus beef, Wagyu, Kobe beef. And then something that's happening more and more, that a specific breed would go into a very specific production system and kind of say, this is my territory, here I'll defend whoever tries to come here till the last barrier. And then, of course, for the role of technology. So all of this you need to take in account, and I'm going to go very quickly through this. But this is something maybe to just look at for a moment. In South Africa, the whole issue of forming new breeds that I've already discussed, as opposed to crossbreeding. And I'm naming a few breeds on things they are doing. I'm not saying it's good or bad or anything like that. It's just to show you how specific you can be. I've just mentioned the problem of breeding black cattle and to be able to sell black genetics. And the interesting thing is there's research supporting that within the Angus breed, black genetics are better simply because there are more of that. If you take the whole world, Angus is black. It's only South Africa and a bit in Southern America, specifically Argentina, that you see red genetics. Now, what happened in South Africa, there's a lot of state contracts on Nguni being sold to especially emerging farmers, which now do not have access to the feedlots because the feedlots don't like them. A few Angus farmers saw the opportunity. They sell their black bulls to those clients, doing good business. Everyone is happy, and the feedlots take then that cattle. Breeds like the Red Brangus and the Senepal specifically aim at other red cattle. The Bonsmara being the most numerous, so obviously that would be the target. In saying our bulls will do well, you'll have the heterosis effect, but they will look the same in terms of then color and type maybe. So again, quite a clever marketing plan. The Bonsmara effect to this was to say you should farm with pure animals, ensuring themselves a market in doing so. And when you look at world genetics and you speak to people about specific breeds doing well, they'll tell you that the most successful breeds in the world in specific countries is that breed who has the biggest amount of purebred commercial cattle in that country. If you look like a country like Brazil, we've got, and we really need to put our heads around this, 13 million cattle in South Africa. Brazil's got 144 million Nelores alone. So if you ask them how many Nelores are there, they don't quote the registered animals, they quote the total purebred animals. And just imagine what kind of bull market they create for themselves in doing that. The Herefords White Face project with the feedlots, and then this whole thing with veldvleis, grass-fed animals. Specific breeds can put themselves in that space, others can't, others would go the grain-fed route. But the one thing that I think we've learned, that lesson, Angus was the breed that first sold Angus beef, being a kind of normal commercial breed that promoted specific beef quality. And ever since, not one other breed was successful in following them. Not because of anything about Angus specifically, but simply because they were first. If you look at the market, whoever enters a market like that first, that guy has the benefit. So I cannot help think that if a breed want to do something specific, look for something where you can be the first, whatever that is. Because once you're the first and you're in that space, it's going to be very difficult for someone else to push you out. We've already spoke about the differentiation between different animals, and then within the Afrikaner, looking at the Afrisim and the Afrigus, sorry, but then having the problem that you don't have enough cows to breed that from. Whatever you decide is going to be your product. That, I don't know what that is. That you need to determine yourself. It could be that you say, I'm stud farming and I want to sell the next farmer's stud bull to him, or I'm going to produce terminal crosses, the terminal male animals for terminal crosses. Maybe that's where you want to be, either for weaners or for long weaners, whatever is your decision. You could say, I'm going to be in commercial purebred breeding, and I'm going to provide that kind of bulls as opposed to stud breeding, producing F1 animals. There are different objectives that you could go for. Whatever that is, you need to make a decision. You would not believe it if and many of my people working for me that are not in the farming community and don't know different breeds, they cannot believe that there are 36 odd breeds. They would say, well, it seems that 2 or 3, because that's basically the message that comes through. Everyone's got the softest meat. Everyone got the best temperament. Everyone is the best aangepas. Everyone's got basically the same traits that everyone try and market off. Why will someone spot you and buy your bull if basically everyone does the same? And again, my congratulations with the Breed Society of the Brahman, because I think that's exactly what you are now changing. To put the value of a specific value of a breed and not selecting for Rita Priya on a tight head prop. If you look at marketing in the broad sense, and I'm really going to try and be quick about this, there are a lot of things that you need to look at. And placing an advertisement is but one of them. And definitely not the first one. There's something very important to remember. If you've got a message that you want to tell people, and that message is a bad message, don't tell. Simple. Don't advertise. Some people might think you're stupid or your cattle is not good, but once you've put that advertisement, many people will know that. So before you do anything else, be sure that what you want to market is actually something you can market. I'll never forget, I once heard a speech, and it's a scary speech, about the South African unemployment situation. And what the guy said was, we don't have a problem in South Africa of people that's unemployed. We've got a problem of people that's unemployable. Huge difference, huge difference. People that's not trained, that's not maybe educated in a specific line of work, and if they're not, then they simply cannot be employed in that specific line. But very much the same applies here. The most important thing in marketing is to portray who you are. You wouldn't believe the kind of marketing that especially the motor industry needs to put out there to tell people that they're something which they know they are. I don't know if you've seen how many cars has been called back this year only. For 3 different models and no names, no places, it's something like 5 million cars that is brought back. You must take your car back to the dealer so that they can fix the airbag. Can you imagine? You've got a safety feature in your car that's supposed to save your life. 3 years down the line, your supplier tells you, listen, that 3 years, you were just lucky. That's all. You never needed what you actually thought you bought. And you wouldn't believe the kind of marketing investment those guys need to do to just make people think differently to the reality that they've already seen. So the kind of marketing that we talk about is the marketing of the good message. So I do not even, it's like, and I hate saying this, like the cheetahs. Yes, Franco Smith's going to be great. Yes, Loot de Jaar decided to stay, but that's about it. I don't have anything else to market about the cheetahs. So if you have money to bet, please don't do that to yourself. I don't understand the bulls either, because they got the names and they got everything, and they also don't have the cup. So there's not much of a difference, to be quite honest. But as a breeder, you need to be very sure about who you are and who do you portray to be. Because that, you've already marketed. You've already done that. You cannot push that back. You cannot pull that back and say to the people, listen, I know I've been selling you infertile bulls and things that was not right, but I'm actually a good guy. Doesn't help. Proof is in the pudding. And if you look the difference in South Africa between successful breeders and breeders not that successful, I would put my money on it that the big difference you'll find here. What is the reputation and what's the truth about that reputation that you portray? The second thing is the breed society. I cannot, maybe almost as important as reputation. Because you can market your breed as you want, as a breeder. All that might happen is your neighbor's going to sell the bull because your money ran dry before you actually could market the fact that you had a bull. It's the breed society that should do the breed promotion. And you should then promote your product, which is your bulls. I really think the effort that the Brahman Breed Society is putting in is going to, well, I think in the first instance explain the fact that is one of the biggest breeds and might explain where the breed will be going. That's vitally important, and it's vitally important that the breeders adhere to that. You cannot say to the side, those guys can do what they want, and I'll do what I want. Whatever they do is going to influence your life, and what you do is going to influence their life and the rest of your breeders as much. So it's vitally important that that's a joint effort. And then, of course, environment. When you drove past here and you see the dam with a R10 on it, good marketing has already been done. Can you imagine the kind of marketing and the amount of ads that needs to be placed in media to have the same effect? Everyone who ever traveled this road, I'm quite sure, would have noticed that. You can do so much in your environment to market what you are doing long before you've spent real money. And then events like this, shows, whoever opportunities there are, auctions, whether it's your own, whether it's joint auctions, or whether it's the national auction. That's one thing in South Africa that's worrying. Our national auctions is going down the drain in most breeds. I don't know if you followed what happened this year, but this year might be one of the turning points in the future of national auctions in South Africa, unfortunately. I agree with what Arthur said about shows. I'll never forget Michael Bradfield taught me this very, very important thing. We were standing at a show, I think it was Freiburg, if I remember correctly, and I just thought it's the right thing to say to such a big scientist. I say, is it the right thing for us to be at a show? And he said, it's not whether you're there or not. It's what you do when you're there. That's important. So maybe we should just reinvent shows. I honestly think the marketing value that the Brahman gets from shows is huge and is extremely valuable. And if a breed then decide that they're not a show breed, they cannot not be there. Then do a static exhibition, but at least be there, because the show today became a social event. It's not what it was before. What else bring people like us together? And congratulations to Llewellyn. I thought getting so many people together and listening to a guy like me while the refreshments is working, that's unbelievable. You simply do not get that anymore. You go around the country, you try and get people together, they don't. Simple. They simply do not come together because of cost, because of a lot of things. So if you have an event like a show and people come to the show, use it for marketing. Don't let it pass. And only then you bring in the media. Because media now is going to fill whatever gaps has been left by the previous. What happens with most marketing plans? They start with the media. You should first be very sure of what you have in terms of your marketing plan. Use your reputation. If you're a reputable farmer, if you have aligned, your father and your grandfather maybe were there and they were good too. It doesn't happen that often, but if it does, then it's something to market. If you've got a strong breed society behind you, wherever you are, the environment you can utilize. Just a simple thing. I mean, I'm doing pirate marketing as I stand here because we've launched a new magazine, Farmbus, and I'm wearing a shirt with Farmbus on it. That's good pirate marketing. I actually went through and I couldn't see that. I'm not allowed to do that. But that is the kind of use the opportunity that comes your way. And Willem, please don't send me the bill. I know. Then, out of a personal point of view, auctions is an unbelievable event. You have to use that, especially if you have your own. And if you don't, maybe consider very well if you're going to do it. Because unfortunately, if you look at production sales now, again, there are too many. We might now need to go back to where we've been, to this big interbreed auctions that we previously had. And the guys, the Greys amongst us would remember in Bloemfontein how many bulls and how many people were sitting around rings looking at that. So when you've utilized everything, then you bring in media. And then, of course, comes the budget, because of all of them, media is the most expensive. and I'm making a living out of it. So please don't forget the media. I'm not suggesting that you should not go there. You have to have a budget. You have to manage that budget. And I know 2.5% to 10% sounds a lot, but a friend of mine who's quite a big farmer, he kind of told me this. He said, if you want that 300,000 or 400,000 bull to be sold, you actually just need 2 people there. And if an advertisement costing you 10,000 rand was what it was, the investment to bring them there to make that kind of money, then I guess it's a very good investment. Timing is everything, more important than anything else. The right amount of money spent at the right time is going to yield a lot more than a lot of money spent at the wrong time. There's an old saying, and again I'm quoting someone else who said that you can, and sorry, this I have to say in Afrikaans, I don't know the translation, maar jy kan jou bankrot spaar. What a guy said, if you save electricity by burning candles, and the product of that is twins, you didn't save electricity. Then whatever you do in terms of marketing, and especially when a budget comes along, you need to evaluate to be sure that you're successful. And I know I'm saying the wrong thing now, but I have to say it because I have to be honest about this. Publishers like us simply get 2 less calls of people saying, you know what, I'm a bit disappointed. I didn't get the returns I thought I was going to get. And in many cases, we'll be able to say, now tell me what you've done. Maybe you should have done this, that, and the next. And then the results is there. You have to be specific what you want to achieve. Paying for marketing is nothing else than a simple investment. You put down your money, you invest in an advertisement, and you expect a return in terms of marketing interest, that your product will sell for a good price. You need to evaluate, and you need to be critical by the outcome. And of course, I've got such a long list of already made up excuses why, if you phone me, I can just quote you somewhere there. Then, whatever you see is not working, rectify. A simple investment. You put down your money, you invest in an advertisement, and you expect a return in terms of marketing interest, that your product will sell for a good price. You need to evaluate, and you need to be critical by the outcome. And of course, I've got such a long list of already made up excuses why, if you phone me, I can just quote you somewhere there. Then, whatever you see is not working, rectify. If you keep on doing the same thing, you're getting the same result. So if you advertise in a way and it doesn't work, then do something different. If you don't, you're going to get the same result. Now, just in terms of broad marketing, having a logo, having an identity is essential. If you don't have that, you've got nothing to sell. That's vitally important. I've got an uncle that tells you things that you don't want to know always. And I'll never forget. When I just finished varsity, if you told me I was going to sell anything to anyone, I would have said, I'm no smos. Don't tell me that. I see myself as a scientist. I'm going to go that direction. And then he kind of told me this very important thing. He said, well, you're actually a good salesman because you sold yourself to a wife that I cannot believe actually married you. So you are selling. As you sit here, you are selling. Llewellyn sold you your time. You actually paid with your time to be here. We are selling everything. And you can only sell if you've got a logo that gives certain identity to who you are and what you want to achieve. Within advertisement, media is but one. You could do pamphlets too. You could use agents. There's a lot of other ways and means that you can go about. I've already touched on the environment. And in the whole environment thing, please do not forget to have a proper signage, as Arthur mentioned, at your farm to tell people that you are there. In terms of your media options, radio, printed media, which gives you magazines, journals, or yearbooks mostly, as well as papers. I don't think papers is anywhere actually in our environment anymore. Internet became huge. And then, of course, the most powerful marketing tool that exists in agriculture is that piece of equipment that every one of you hold in your hand that you need to go back and ask your children how to use it, your cell phone. I don't know if people, John Deere's got a brilliant video on their website, the international John Deere website. Please, just for your own sake, go and have a look. The video is about how technology will influence agriculture. That little cell phone will be your laptop, your television, your desktop computer, your telephone, your everything. And if Andries at the ripe age of 86 can tell you that, can you imagine what young people can do about that? This is not, I'm not suggesting this is what you should do, but just in terms of a broad idea, this is how you should look at marketing. The stretch from left to right is the stretch of, of marketing. You cannot be only at one place. You have to be everywhere. Even if it's this big, you have to be there. Because you do not know where your market, you cannot really predict where your market will go. So if you look at left to right, starting at environment, going right through to your cell phone as the marketing stretch, and if you look at the upper bar being the money that you actually spend, you have to do a budget something like this. And saying, this is what I'm going to spend at that different marketing platform. You're going to evaluate all of them, and if you put all of them together, that's what you call your marketing plan. Now, just to give you an idea on the radio, radio I honestly think is one of the things we do not use as we... I don't know if you can hear this. No, this is not working. But anyway, tomorrow morning, 4:45, you can listen to the radio program on RSG if you've missed what I've just tried to let you hear.
Bekende veearts en ons gaan met hom bietjie praat oor die siektes van nattoestande want
this is just the radio option. Of course there are a lot of other options. Another one of them would be magazines. I have to do another bit of marketing myself, otherwise we might miss it totally. But just yeah, this is our milking month. But just an interesting thing on this, and that's a lesson that I've learned, and I wish I could have told you I knew it was like that, but I didn't. When we started Veeplaas, we focused on the Afrikaans-speaking commercial farmer. We then thought, well, we're very vulnerable. Someone else might start an English version of this, and they might beat us on advertisement there. So we need to do something just to cover our back. Let me be honest. That was the reason why we launched Stock Farm. But a magazine is a wonderful thing because it's a breathing, living organism. And from the first issue, Stock Farm told us, no, this is not going to work like that. It is now owned by two groups of readers, which I did not know would be our target market. We thought English-speaking commercial farmers would be our target market. Stock Farm are being read by Africa. The Zimbabwean guys, I'm quite sure you've seen it. Please, when you go back, buy. Would like better sales in Zimbabwe. Botswana is our best-selling country in Africa. I met Don, ek gaan foto's wys. I met with the register last week. He saw Stock Farm in Kenya. He actually never read it in South Africa, but he saw it in Kenya and read it there. We go as far as Nigeria. I've already mentioned Cameroon. And you know what's interesting? Those countries, they're not interested in reading about what's happening in their country because there's magazines covering that. They want to know what we are doing here. The second group of readers is commercial-minded emerging farmers. Hear the difference. Not subsistence-minded emerging farmers. There are farmers out there, and I promise you, if you ever come to Pretoria, I'll show it to you. I actually forgot I wanted to bring it along. I've got a Stock Farm magazine that's covered in plastic, like you would cover a school book, which was given to me. I actually bought it from an emerging farmer at the African Farmers Expo in Nasrec last year. He carries that magazine as been his, noem het, handbook, like a handbook in farming. And just to point to a place where this actually happened before, Car Magazine is maybe the most successful car magazine that was ever published in South Africa. A brilliant magazine. They did some research about 10 years ago, trying to determine who's the main reader of that magazine. Now you must remember, their focus reader, the guy they write for, is a 54-year-old guy that can afford a C-Class Mercedes. That is a fact. That is how they do that. This was told to me by the publisher of that magazine. When they did the research, they suddenly learned that most readers of Car Magazine is 27-year-old guys driving a 1600 Corolla. It was 10 years ago. I don't think people always know a Corolla anymore. Now, immediately, it was panic stations because we are missing our reader. So immediately they changed their content. They put in new content to now accommodate this 27-year-old. And they, for instance, would put an article, how to service a 1600 Corolla. Suddenly sales dropped and no one understood what was going on. You know why? Because that 27-year is an aspiring 54-year-old Mercedes owner. He cannot afford the Mercedes as yet, but he can afford the magazine, and that's why he buy it. So out of a breeding point of view, maybe that's what you should do. The guy is buying the magazine because he cannot afford the bull yet. You should advertise your bull in that magazine, otherwise when he comes to be 54, you're going to miss out. Someone else might have gotten that. Just two quick advertisements, just something to remember. Meadows are here advertising not their product. So they are actually marketing a specific atmosphere that you as a potential buyer would relate to. This would make you feel warm and cozy when you see the brand. You'll say, I'm going to buy this. This guys think like I do. And then John Deere, and they've always been brilliant with this. Whatever is happening, what's topical, like the Springboks now, they would jump upon that and be baie aktueel gee op daai oomblik, vat hulle die oomblik saam en hulle kry die voordeel daarvan, ry op daai perd. Ek dink nie hulle gaan sulke advertensies na die Wêreldbekers plaas nie. En as julle dan net sommer vinnig kyk, en ek gaan sommer vinnig hierso verby hardloop, op die internet, hier is die veeplaas webtuiste byvoorbeeld, dit raak 'n enorme potensiële advertentiebron. Sal dit nie glo nie, ek het dit beklei by die kantoor. Ek het gesê Facebook en veeplaas, something is wrong. We cannot do that. Honestly speaking, whoever reads veeplaas is a serious stockman. He's not going to do Facebook. We have 3,500 Facebook friends. And the sad thing about that was I was a friend for 6 months before I realized that. They created a profile on my behalf and they didn't tell me. Then, of course, the whole thing about podcasts. You can now put a video on the internet about your bull, how the bull walks, what the bull does. You can do so much more than previously was impossible to market your product. The whole thing about tweets, we really started to work on that. I'm not going to say we've nailed it yet, but within agriculture, we are really, it's really going well. We have a young auctioneer competition every year. You wouldn't believe the amount of followers that we had for that competition. We had our nationals at Nampo, and it went really well. It would not have been possible without social media. And if a little baboon in Cape Town can have a own Facebook page, can you imagine what you can do for your bulls in the process? And what especially you can do to the clients. You know this little WhatsApp groups? I just last month, for the first time, saw a breeder that has a WhatsApp group of 45, if I remember correctly, 45 people, and those 45 people is on his WhatsApp group, and every week there are some news on that. Again, Michael Bradfield wrote an article for Fear Plus last year that I thought was a brilliant article. And what he said in that article was, if you're a commercial farmer and you want to, for instance, have better fertility in your herd, do not waste time in trying to select the right bull, because you're a commercial farmer, you most likely would not be able to do that. Select the right breeder and buy from that breeder. And he showed in a graph that within 5 years, you'll have an 87% correlation with the genetics of that breeder if you then buy his bulls. So can you imagine if you have a little community of people that bought your bulls before, and you keep them together to make sure that the next bull they buy, they're also going to buy from you. I really hope that your marketing campaign will be very successful. Maybe that's what South Africa needs. I think the challenges that we have as breeders and as specifically within the cattle industry, a lot of that can be overcome by good marketing, and I hope that a lot of those marketing you'll put in Fear Plus and Stock Farm. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.